Greetings, Missouri Mid-South Conference. I bring you greetings from my home office in Houston, Texas. I have a question for you that I have been asking in some different ways in our local churches lately, and that is, what does it mean to be the church? That is, in many ways, the question that we wrestle with as well as try to answer and live out in different expressions, especially for our churches throughout the Missouri Mid-South Conference. Our United Church of Christ has this wonderful slogan that's very simple in a lot of ways, and that is, be the church. And there's this great banner, which I have pulled up on my iPad, because there's descriptions that go along with and kind of fall right under be the church. And in many ways, I think that that is the way that we should understand how we are called as local churches, as the United Church of Christ, as the Missouri Mid-South Conference, to be the church. And here are the descriptions. Protect the environment, care for the poor, forgive often, reject racism, fight for the powerless, share earthly and spiritual resources, embrace diversity, love God, enjoy this life. Woohoo! In my Epiphany sermons that I've been sharing and preaching in our different local churches, as I talk about and celebrate that these are lots of different ways and expressions and descriptions of how we are called to be the church, there's a couple of things that I really appreciate. Number one, all of those descriptors of be the church really have nothing to do with the four walls of a building. Because as you and I well know, the church in the big C church is not the building. It's the people. It's the energy. It's the hopes. It's the glue that holds us together on our good day and on our hard day. And what I love about these descriptions is, this has nothing to do with the building. It has to do with who we are called to be. The second thing that I have been saying in my Epiphany sermons in churches where I have been preaching is that at first glance, when we hear this slogan, be the church, and then to go into all the descriptors, our temptation is to say, oh yes, this is great, this is who we are, isn't that beautiful, it's poetic, yes, this is who we yearn to be, this is who we are on a good day. That's the temptation. But if we think about following the ways of Jesus, and Jesus was very much all about these descriptions, the reality is that truly living into these descriptions, truly following the ways of Jesus, truly being the church, it's hard. It's messy. It's complicated. It's trying to figure out when we need to move forward and be prophetic and when we need to step back and be present and loving. Your work as the local church is to figure that out. When are you called to be cutting edge and to be that presence of extravagant hospitality to all so that your community will know that your United Church of Christ is a place that is welcoming? Whether you have flags out front, whether you are a wonderfully inclusive community, it's how we are called to be the church. And if we are serious about following the ways of Jesus, if we are serious about living, embodying these descriptions, protect the environment, care for the poor, reject racism, here's what I know that I can tell you as conference minister for every one of our churches and ministers in the Missouri Mid-South Conference and the United Church of Christ, it is messy. If you really want to work and commit yourselves to rejecting racism, it's going to get messy. It's going to get complicated. It's going to get uncomfortable. And there's going to be lots of different expressions of how you reject racism. The point is not having one way of being the church by one way of rejecting racism. point is living out the messiness. The point is leaning into your discomfort and opening yourselves so fully, so openly, that God's Spirit will come and be with you in the midst of the messiness, in the midst of the discomfort, in the midst of rejecting racism and protecting the environment and caring for the poor and forgiving often. Those are not easy or beautiful or poetic things. They're complicated, they're messy, and they're needed. Especially right now. My brothers and sisters, we are living in a time and a presidency where our extravagant hospitality is needed. And that extravagant hospitality of being the church in all of these descriptions and in other ways, the importance in this moment is that we must be committed to being willing to be uncomfortable and to get messy and to be in the midst of the complexity. Among my conference minister colleagues, one of the conversations that we've been having is, how do we hold our conference together? How do we encourage our pastors and ministers and our local churches who are seeking to be the church for such a time as this? When we have executive orders that are filled more with fear and exclusion and confinement. I'm in, you're out. This is what good looks like, that is not. But how do we do it in a way that holds us together, that unites us, rather than a way that says, good, bad, no, 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 yes, yes, yes. How are we called to be the church? And all of the descriptions that embody following the way of Jesus. For such a time as this, in a moment where walls are being proposed, in a moment where bans are being ordered. My brothers and sisters of the Missouri Mid-South Conference, this is our hard work, and it's going to get messy, and it's going to be uncomfortable. It is uncomfortable for me, but we must wrestle with it. Because if we are serious about all of these expressions of being the church, if we are serious about all of the gospel expressions of following the ways of Jesus, then we must be serious about leaning into our discomfort. We must be serious about being willing to get in messy conversations in our churches, in our families, in our work, in our community, so that we can do this more than this, so that we can do this more than this. Oh, my brothers and sisters, let us be the church in uncomfortable, in prophetic, in loving, in respectful, and in messy ways. Because only then will we do this. This day and forevermore. Amen.